are you going to trust me? And I said, I have no other choice.
And you are always best suited to help and to guide who you used to be.
I have you on a mountaintop, and I'm taking you from mountaintop to mountaintop. But you got to take this jump by faith.
Hey, what's going on, family? Welcome to another episode of Called to Serve podcast. I am your host, Reggie Hubbard. If you haven't done so yet, please follow, comment, subscribe, all of that jazz. It really helps with our mission. But today, I have a very special guest in the house today. All right, we got Dr. Campbell over here. Dr. Campbell had a previous career in higher education and has now been working in the psychology field for over 10 years now. She specializes in anxiety and depression treatment. Just an overall wonderful woman. I'm super excited to have her. I'm not going to steal her thunder. Welcome, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Reggie. I really appreciate you having me. I look forward to the conversation we're going to have today, and I hope your listeners hear something that will move them forward, and if they're not seeing a therapist, that they will seek one.
Yes. Well, let's tell us about your story. Like, how did it all start for you?
Well, it started with me thinking I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? And I was in higher ed. I started off working in financial aid, helping students, with loans, scholarships to help them get through college. And then I transitioned to a position in multicultural affairs, helping students of color on predominantly white campuses matriculate until graduation. And then that transitioned me into a position as an academic dean. So my last 7 years of the 21 years in higher education was as an academic dean.
Wow.
So, I was just going along thinking this was what I would do until I retired. And I feel like the Lord just said, okay, I've let you think that, but now I'm going to transition you,
I love that.
Yes. And so I was in Ohio. So that last position as an academic dean was in Ohio.
Okay.
And I felt the call to, come back to Georgia. This is my hometown. So I thought, oh, sure. I'll go back to Georgia after being in Ohio for 11 years, and I'll continue in higher ed. And I got back here, and none of the doors would open for me to continue in higher education. So, I had to go back to the Lord and say, hey, what's happening? I told everybody, you told me it was time to come back to Georgia. Your name is on the line. Now what are you going to do, And one of the places where I worked actually to do my internship when I got my degree in counseling, they called me up and said, hey, I know you're back in Georgia. Have you found anything in higher ed yet? And I said, no, not yet. And they asked if I would be interested in counseling. And I said, sure, because, my money was running out, so I got to do something here.
I do something.
Yes. And so January 2nd of 2015, I started work there, and it was when I went into the office they assigned me to that I realized this was more than just a job, because that office was the same office I had when I did my internship there. I realized then that this was a journey that the Lord had me on.
Wow.
So I did full circle, and here I am in this office. So I started paying attention. I'm like, I can't miss anything here. So, I worked there for a few years, got the experience, and then the Lord said, now I want you to step out and start your private practice. Now that I was really afraid. I'm like, Lord, I already moved back to Georgia from Ohio. That was scary enough. And now you're telling me to step out, and do this solo, But again, I was like, if, I believe it's you, I'm going to do it, and I stepped out and he met me right there.
Ooh.
Right there, I mean, the clients, a lot of my clients followed me. My previous employer, they were okay with that. They still, to this day, refer clients to me. And the business, I mean, it just took off. It took off. And what that really did for me, it helped me to see that this was a pre-planned journey, that everything that I had experienced in life was preparing me for this job. This job. So a lot of times when we go through things in life, we ask why and why me, you know, and now I look at it differently. I look at it as a privilege to serve the Lord. Like, he allowed me to go through these trials in preparation for this job, so that when a client comes to me and they're going through this thing, I can tell them how I got through it. That this is not the end of the world. That when we experience, tragedies, even tragedies in life, that we always need to look at what we can take from that. What's your takeaway?
Yeah.
And when it comes to, dealing with anxiety, dealing with stress, depression, grief, I have been through each one of those things, and I'm on the other side of it. So that says we can get through it.
Yes.
We can get through it.
That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that a lot of people, they kind of get choked up when sharing their testimony, because they feel like, well, maybe like I haven't come through it, or I haven't been through enough. Mm-hmm. But the reality is in order to help someone, or in order to coach someone, you only need to be one step ahead of them.
Yes.
Right. And you are always best suited to help and to guide who you used to be.
Yes. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that. I have come to understand that, and it really helps me do what I do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's very cool.
Yeah.
I think it takes a very special person to do what you do, and to do it well. And I think that really revealed the heart of the company you used to work for, because you said, hey, clients followed me and they were cool with it, and they still refer me to clients. Yep. So for me, when I heard that, I was like, wow, they really genuinely care about the health or the progress of these patients.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Because if you were just thinking from a business perspective, you're going to be thinking like, oh, they're taking money out of our pockets.
Right.
Oh, that's money that's coming away from our business. You're not thinking about the individual people who are maybe in crisis, or who may be going through something, and thinking like, you know what, perhaps this is the best person that they're able to connect with. This is the best person that is able to throw them a lifeline and pull them out. Right. Yes. And then when you think that way, you're more transactional than relational.
Yes.
So that really just gave me a lot of joy to hear you say that about a former employer, for them to be cool with, patients following you, but then also still saying, hey, we want to see you win. Mm-hmm. We believe in what you do. We've seen what you can do. We've seen your capabilities. And we want to continue to send people your way.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
It's the right thing to do.
Yes. I think that they really get it, and they understand that, when a person comes to therapy, this is a person with real issues. Yeah. And they believe in it, believe in what we do enough to say, if this therapist can reach you, if you feel that connection, and if it's helping you, we want you to go with that person if that's what you want to do. And so they were open to that.
I love that. I really do, because I don't think many organizations would do that. They were like, oh, you know what? So-and-so is not here with us anymore. Mm-hmm. We're going to assign so-and-so to you now. And that a lot of the times it's to keep the money in house.
Right. Well, I think what makes it unique in this situation is that this was, or it still is, the counseling center at my church. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't about the money for them. It's about the soul. It's about the person. So, they were open to that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that. So let's backtrack just a little bit, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I would really love to talk about your upbringing, like where you from. What kind of influenced your decision to get into higher education, right? But what have been the influences in your walk with the Lord?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I grew up in Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
I attended elementary, middle, and high school there. I got married at a young age because I'll tell you, I wanted to move to Atlanta after graduating from high school, and my mother thought Atlanta was just too big for me, that it would just swallow me up, So, me being the rebellious child that I was, I decided, well, I'll just get married. So I got married at 18, got married, had 3 kids. But when I turned 30, I was like still feeling unfulfilled, and I was like, I just want to get a college education. So I started college at 30, married, 3 kids,
Come on.
And, I loved it. I was just soaking up the information, just learning all that I could learn. And my work study job was in the financial aid office. And little did I know, when it was time for me to graduate, because I was getting a degree in education, but one of the vice presidents said, we have a job for you. How would you like working in the financial aid office, full time? And so that's how I started that 21-year career in higher education. Now, along the way, when you work at a university, you can take classes free. So that's how I got the master's in education and then the master's in counseling. So the Lord let me think I was doing what I wanted to do, but he led me to that path of getting that master's degree in counseling. I mean, every step of the way, he was leading me and guiding me. I had no idea. And even doing my internship at a church, that's unheard of, because counseling at a church is not looked on as real counseling. A lot of people think that the counselors are just volunteers, but at this particular church, we were licensed.
Wow.
Licensed professional counselors. So just doing that internship there, and again, continuing on in education, in higher education, but gaining life experiences along the way, And when that time came, and the Lord brought me back and then placed me in counseling again, I knew that this was a journey that he had for me. So it really did, teach me a lot about life, a lot about getting through those tough times, when we had hit a stumbling block and we don't know which way to go. I know now, and that's because, I'll be 65 this year, so okay. I've learned a lot.
Oh, hold on. God is good.
Yes, he is all the time. Girl. All the time.
You're doing it.
Now I don't look at adversity as a setback. One thing he taught me, and this was just so profound, when I came back to Georgia and I was looking for a job in higher education, and I kept getting, no's, no, not now, no, not, at this moment. And God said, this is not a rejection, it's a redirection. He was redirecting
That's
me,
a good word.
Yeah. And so I had to pay attention. He's redirecting me. He will open the right doors.
Yes.
And he did.
Yes.
He did.
And a lot of times, and you see this a lot, like in the Bible, right? And I think it's so funny. Like, we have our own plan.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and
but
it's
God
like, hey, you want to hear God laugh?
Mm-hmm.
Tell him your plans for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times when we're like down in those trenches, right? And we're just like, oh man, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what am I gonna do? Am I doing the right thing? This and that. And a lot of the times there's a breaking before there's a blessing.
Oh yes,
right? Because you have to be broken down.
Oh yes,
you have to be ready to to receive what God has in
Yes.
store for your life.
Yes, absolutely. There was a point when I was working on my bachelor's degree, and remember now, married, 3 kids. My car broke down, but I was so hungry for that education. I bought a bicycle, a boy's bike, because it had the little bar on it.
Uh-huh.
I would put my 2 younger daughters on the bike, ride them to the daycare, drop them off, and ride on to work. I was just so determined. I had to do this, And people laughed at me, they laughed at me, but now they're like, I knew you could do it. I knew you could do it,
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And my daughters, they saw me, really persevere through that. So it just showed them that, we may have adversities, but we got to push through.
Yeah.
You just push through. You're going to get to the other side.
100%.
So, yeah, absolutely.
I think that's very cool because, like what was going through your mind? Like now you're 30 years old.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Married, 3 kids.
Yes.
And you just decided to go to school.
No, I didn't just decide. Again, I can remember I was sitting in church and the pastor was preaching about how, he said, there are some of you out there that, want the Lord to bless you and you're just looking for the sky to open up and the blessing to just fall from the sky. But God may be looking for you to step out on faith. Take that move. And he said, for some of you, it may be going to college. And a light bulb went off. And I'm like, yes. And so I made that decision. He still talks about it. When I go back home to visit, the people in that church know me as the member that rode her bicycle to school, Yeah. So, it was just one of those things that God just, he wants us to give him something to work with. You're sitting back and you're waiting for me, but I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for you. Step out there. I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
And he did. And I'm just always so amazed when I look back at that. And it was tough. It was tough, but I never gave up. And he had that ram in the bush along the way, each step of the way. You just finished this. And then here's the vice president offering me a job. Just moved back to Georgia. Now the church is calling and wanting to know if I'm interested in working in the counseling center. And then I get that experience. And then he tells me, now start your practice. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
Just step out there, do it, and I'll meet you there.
So he orders each and every one of your steps.
Oh yes, he does.
You got to step out.
You got to step out.
Faith.
Yeah, faith without
obedience.
works.
Yes.
It's
dead.
Yes.
It's dead.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah, that's right.
That kind of reminds me of, for me, I was a student worship resident pastor at a very big church in the Metro Atlanta area, and there was a competitive internship program. I wasn't the ideal candidate, but then, God just arrested my heart and said, man, I don't want you to leave from stage right now. What I want you to do is to become a change agent in a marketplace, and I'm going to position you. I'm going to put you in rooms where very few people have access to. They're going to be very influential, and they're going to help shape you to be the leader that I'm calling you to be.
Yes.
And when I received that word and I acted on it, people thought I was nuts.
Oh, yes, yes.
They thought I was nuts.
Oh, yes, yes.
They were like, man, like, dude, like less than 3% of the country gets this position. You already weren't an ideal candidate because you were already married and had a kid.
Yes.
And they usually go for like college students who, are in seminary and things like that. And I said, yeah, but the Lord told me to do something. I'm going to be obedient. You know what I mean? And so I resonate with you. A lot of the times this uncertainty, but then again, that's what faith is.
Yes, that's right. When I turned in my resignation at the university where I worked in Ohio, they thought I had lost my mind. Here I am in my 50s. You've had this career for 21 years and you're going to just leave it, And I look at this picture you have on the wall here. That was the dream I had. I was standing on this mountaintop and I had to jump from one mountaintop to the other. And in the dream, I was so focused on the gap Well, what if I fall? I'm going to fall,
Mm-hmm.
through this gap, you know? And in the dream, I just stood there and the mountain started crumbling under my feet and I woke up. I immediately started journaling about what this dream was about. And then I started praying and I asked God to reveal to me what the dream meant. And he said, I have you on a mountaintop and I'm taking you from mountaintop to mountaintop, but you got to take this jump by faith.
Come
You got to
on.
take it by faith,
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to take this leap. And I knew, it was to move back to Georgia. I'm going to take this leap of faith,
Yeah.
and he didn't let me fall.
Oh man. That's
It's all
good.
about faith. And, and when I see clients, this is what makes me so excited when they come to me and they're going through something, and I share with them what I've experienced in life. And, no, it's not easy, but you got to believe in the Lord and believe in yourself,
Yep.
and you can do this. Don't give up on you. He's equipped us. He gave us everything we need for this lifetime. So when he knitted us together, he was like, this is Diane. She's going to go through this, this, and this. But I know her, she's so determined. She's not going to give up. She's going to keep going, and she doesn't mind sharing it with other people,
Yeah.
because I get so excited, about it. Like, look what the Lord has done. You're not going to believe this. And when I share that with them, it gives them hope, and so they just need that little ray of hope to take that next step. And I said, okay, you got there. Now, the Lord will have you go through something else. He's gonna lead the way. He's gonna guide you, but trust him.
Yeah.
So and I know that not all of my clients are believers, but the ones who do believe, and they tell me that, and so I get excited. I'm like, okay, we're gonna be good. We can do this, And it's something that I always remember, a verse that I always remember, Jeremiah 33:3 says, call on me and I'll answer you and show you great and marvelous things you do not know. That speaks to me. That speaks to me.
Wow.
Because I know that he's done that for me.
Wow.
That
That is awesome.
Yes.
I guess I look at it because you said that all of your clients or patients are not necessarily believers.
Right.
But that's an opportunity right there.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean?
So I don't have a problem with that,
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I still share the word with them, and I'll tell them, all you need is faith the size of a mustard seed. And I said, and I'll join my faith with your faith. I believe this for you.
Yes.
And
you can move. You can tell a mountain to move.
Move, and it'll move.
It'll move.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wow.
And the word says that one plants, another one waters, and God will get the increase. All I need to do is plant the seed, and somebody else will come along and say something else to them. That's watering them. And then one day they make that decision to accept Christ as their Lord and Savior. God will get the increase.
Yes.
So they don't have to leave my office saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. I've done my part. I planted the seed,
Yeah. I think that's very powerful. And it kind of reminds me of a conversation that I was having with one of my mentors just yesterday, actually. When we talk about planting seeds, we think about the seed being planted and what comes after that. But oftentimes we don't really think about the sower.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And when you are aligned with God, and when you are aligned with and moving in your purpose, the sower and the seeds that you plant, right? I just think it's so important to consider who is the sower of the seed.
Yes.
Because that can really determine the product that comes after that.
Oh, yes. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Because if you're going to sow it in good ground,
yeah.
you
gotta talk about that good soil too.
Yes,
You gotta have that good soil.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
100%.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that.
Yes. And when God, he prepared me so much so that he gave me the name of my practice, Life Talk Counseling. We're talking about life.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about life. You know, what is it about life that has you stressed? What is it about life that has you depressed? You know, and when it comes to grief, you know, I had a lot of my lessons, I've learned them the hard way. And I say this to God, and I hope he has a sense of humor. I think he does. I think he does. But some of the trials, I'm like, God, that was hard. I almost gave up. You know, I almost gave up. 8 years ago, I lost my oldest daughter. She was 37 years old. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, Lord, I pray with people every day, you know, every client, 8 times a day. And my daughter, you know, you let my daughter die. And, you know, I was still standing there with the phone in my hand when I got the news. And the Holy Spirit said, are you going to trust me? And I'm like, can we do something else? Give me another trial, not this one. Are you going to trust me? And I said, I have no other choice. No other choice. And I remember sitting there after doing my devotional one morning, and I said, Lord, I know she's with you. I just wish I could speak to her one more time. And I promise you this happened. And I have the message that I got. My phone vibrated, and I picked it up, and it was a Facebook notification. I never got this notification. I never answered it. It was from my daughter. Hello, Mom. I love you. I miss you. I can't wait to see you. When I saw that, I was like, what?
Wow.
And right then I said, Lord, I am going to get up. I'm going to wash my face, take off my sackcloth, and be about your business. I'm going to be about your business because you heard me.
Yes.
You heard me and you answered me. You know?
That's deep.
Yes, it's deep. Listen, this has been a very exciting walk. It has been. You can't make it up. I know it happened. My daughters know. I showed them the message. I'm like, I can't believe this, you know? And so that just gave me the energy I needed. You know, I was like, Lord, you show me. You tell me what you want me to do. I promised him if he got me through that, I will tell anyone who will listen how great he is. And he is great.
Yes, he is
great.
Wow.
Yep.
That kind of gave me like goosebumps.
I know. And you know, but it is true. I know it to be true. And, you know, it helped me to accept death. Because we know we all have to die. That's the only way we're going to leave this earth.
Right.
You know? But we don't get to choose that time. We all have an appointed time.
Yes.
You know? And so I've learned to accept what God allows. He can stop anything. But if he allows it to happen, it's for the greater good. 100%. And I ask God to show me what good can come from me losing my child. And he showed me, because what that did was it quickened something in all of my nieces and nephews. You know, wow, you know, one of our family members, our age, passed away. And to this day, 8 years later, they still have a cousins chat where they talk every day. They're always checking on each other. If someone's going through something, they get together, they pray for that person. So if that's the good that came of it, then I'm okay. I'm okay.
That's powerful.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I always, in my prayers every day, I always tell the Lord this: my hands, your will.
Yes. Yes.
Because we're just here for a blip of time.
Yes.
You know, and that's just a physical death.
Mm-hmm. That's just a physical death.
Just a
that's
physical death.
That's all that is. Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, listen, when I tell you that this has been a very exciting life, you know, and I look back on it and I smile because I made it through. I'm like, I made it through. And I'm grateful for that. And I can share it with other people. And just learning from the experiences and being in a good place is worth it all.
Yeah.
It really is. It's worth it all.
And I could just imagine how many people are going to be touched and impacted by this story.
I hope so.
You know?
I hope it gives them hope, and I hope that it increases their faith.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. I literally got goosebumps when you were telling me that story.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
man, like God is, he works in some mysterious ways.
Yes. Yes. I just, I know that he's real, and it was so real to me that I remember driving to work, and I'm like, God, does everyone else know this about you? Like, do they talk to you like this, and you answer them in real time? Because that day I felt like he knew me personally, and I know he does, but I felt like I was the only person that had that connection with him. So I went into work feeling like y'all just don't know. God and I, we are good.
Yeah.
He talks to me,
If you ain't know, you better ask somebody.
You better ask somebody.
Y'all know who my daddy
is.
Yes.
Yes. I was like, I was walking around with my chest poked out. I'm like, yeah, y'all don't know. I got a direct connection to God,
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, again, thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Yes. So how can people get in touch with you?
Okay. So there are several ways. Of course, my phone number is 678-541-5648.
Okay.
That's 678-541-5648. Or email me at lifetalkwithdiane@gmail.com.
Okay.
And lifetalkwithdiane.com is my website.
Excellent.
Yes.
So y'all heard it. We'll definitely put those things in the description. I just wanted to definitely take a second to get that put out there.
Yes.
So that anyone, who's dealing with grief or anxiety or depression, if you're looking for someone that you need to talk to or some support, definitely reach out to Dr. Campbell.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit. All right.
Okay.
So we kind of got a little deep, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But let's talk about who is Diane? Like outside of, the counselor,
Mm-hmm.
outside of the mentor, who is Diane? What do you like to do?
Well, what do I like to do? I like shopping.
Okay. Oh,
Love that. Something that I didn't say, so I have 12 grandchildren. I say that's my tribe.
Lord.
I have a tribe of 12. I love interacting with them. Every morning I send them a verse of the day. They call me, even though they have parents, they'll call me for anything. Nana, where can I get my passport? I'm like, ask your mother, ask your father, but no, it's got to come from Nana. So I like, being with my grandchildren. I like reading, learning. I love learning. I also like gardening. I found that I love that. When my mother passed away in 2020, I went down to Savannah to spend some time with her before she passed. Didn't know she was going to pass. But when I came back, I started a garden. And I really enjoyed it, like giving life to something,
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing that. I love people. Everywhere I go, I don't know, people, I can meet a stranger and they just start telling me stuff,
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm listening, and so I just get joy out of doing that. Just being out there and talking to people.
I really wonder what that is. My wife tells me that all the time. She's like, man, like people just meet you and they just start spilling it.
Yeah, they do. I promise you they do. They really do. And I don't know if it's like, do I, come off as attentive? Maybe they think I'm listening. I am listening. But, I walk away and I'm like, that's a perfect stranger. And they just told me one of their deepest problems,
Yeah.
But I'm not, I tell you this, though, I remember in middle school, my friends used to say, you need to be a counselor because they would always come to me with their problems. You should be a counselor. You should be a counselor, And so that was spoken over me, when I was young.
Wow.
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the shopping, the gardening. I think that was very interesting about the gardening.
Yeah.
Because and you said like giving new life.
Yes.
To people, and in a way, that's what you're doing every single day.
Yes.
You're planting those seeds, and for somebody to get past where they are to get to where they want to be.
Yes.
Something has to die.
Yes, something has to die. Something has to die.
So that something else can come alive.
Yeah. And I think what happens with helping people to understand. So let's, say, someone has anxiety. One thing that I try to get them to understand is there's a difference between worrying and anxiety. When you have anxiety, or I would say fear and anxiety. Fear is based on something you experienced before. So if you were attacked by a dog and you see a dog, you are afraid. That's not anxiety, that's fear, because you've been attacked by a dog before. Anxiety is based on what we think might happen. It's what we're telling ourselves will happen.
That's good.
Yeah. So you always ask, there's a trigger, there's a trigger. We think something about that. Oh, this is going to happen. And then we act on what we've told ourselves.
Yeah.
So if people could get that, and I always ask, so what were you telling yourself about that situation? Well, I was telling myself they did that on purpose. All right. Why? What made you think they did that on purpose? What reason? Like if someone cuts you off in traffic, they don't know you personally.
Yeah.
They don't know you personally. So don't take it personal.
Yeah.
Just they are in a hurry to get somewhere.
That is very interesting. What made you feel or what made you think that they did it on
what were
purpose?
you telling yourself?
It's all about It's all about introspection at that point in time.
Yes.
I think that helps people get the answers that they need. That's a powerful question.
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
And going back to fear a little bit. So I served 14 years in the military, and I've approached fear, or when I think of fear, I think about it in two different ways, based off of the fight or flight. You're either gonna forget everything and run, or face everything and rise.
Yes.
And sometimes I look at fear as a gift, because in some instances it's kept me alive based off of my response to whatever the stimulus was.
Yes.
So I always give that to fear. That's just my personal opinion. Is that I feel like fear can be a gift.
Yes.
In certain circumstances.
Yes.
But that can also be a burden.
Yes. Yes, it can. And it's all about what we're telling ourselves about that fear.
Wow.
That
like my mind is just going in circles right now.
Yeah.
Like just thinking in my own personal life, sometimes I struggle with PTSD. And like now I'm going to try to think about what is it that I'm telling myself that is making this real again.
Yes, that's right.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes.
Yes.
So again, you're doing self-talk, and self-talk can help us in a lot of situations. And if you hear a noise in the hallway, are you telling yourself that's a gunshot? And what makes you think that's a gunshot? What if someone dropped something? Could
have been a pot.
It could have been a pot. What's the likelihood of it being a gunshot? And in that time, you're still assessing.
Yeah.
You're still assessing. You're not going to just run out. When you hear the sound, you're not going to just run out the door. What is it?
Yeah.
And what's the likelihood of it being that?
That's a good question. So I guess, sometimes you get so wrapped up in the emotions and the anxiety and the fear, you don't take the time to process that way. It's just like, come on, it sounds like a gunshot. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah. Yes. And so, I mean, of course, sometimes, it may not be likely it's a gunshot, but it might be. It might be, but in that split second, if we train ourselves to process so that you don't rush out there, and get shot.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that. What else do you hear? Are there other noises? Do you hear other people? Is it screaming? What goes along with those gunshots that you should be hearing?
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like for me anyway. It's like painting a picture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are the elements of that picture,
Yes.
or what are the elements that would be present in conjunction with a gunshot?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do I hear screaming? Do I hear panicking?
Mm-hmm.
Do I hear, sirens?
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
Then I shared with you before we went on that I thought we had an earthquake this morning, and actually we did. But when I felt the building shaking, I thought, okay, could that be the garbage truck coming to empty the dumpster because it's heavy and it makes a lot of noise? So I started processing it, and I thought I didn't hear it, traveling. So I said, no, that's not it. And I thought that could have been an earthquake. This is just in seconds.
Yeah.
So I looked at the clock because I wanted to remember what time it was. So it was 9:05. And later on, I was talking to a friend on the phone, and she mentioned, we had an earthquake this morning. I said, and it was at 9:05. I looked and I Googled it, and sure enough, a 4.1 earthquake,
Wow.
Took place, and it started in Tennessee.
Wow.
So feeling the building shaking, what could it be? Could be the dump truck, all right, but I don't hear it traveling along the road. So what else could it have been? Could have been an earthquake. All right, let me just note that 9:05. So
that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't feel it because there's always an earthquake in my house. All the kids running around, jumping around.
Yeah.
So it's always like it might be like an 8.9 magnitude earthquake.
Before you realize it is. Yes. Yes.
I got the little ones running around causing havoc. So
yeah.
But that's very cool.
Yes. Yeah. So just allowing yourself to think through, evaluate, assess, process. And we do it, and we do it quickly. But if your first response is flight, sometimes that causes more problems than it needs to. Something else that I deal with a lot. I work with a lot of couples, married couples. I do a lot of premarital counseling, and we talk a lot about communication and conflict resolution skills. And that whole, what are you telling yourself about this situation? I have couples, let's talk through this. When he said that, what did you tell yourself? Well, I told myself that he feels like I, don't dress up enough. And so why do you feel that that's what he was saying? Well, because I know I wear sweats all the time and, but he didn't say that. So why are you thinking that? Because if it's you that feel like you need to dress up more, then
maybe you should.
Huh. But don't put that on him if that's not what he said.
Yes.
So active listening, and asking follow-up questions. What did you mean when you said that? Because I'm telling myself you meant this. Oh, no, absolutely not. I didn't mean that. I'm okay with you wearing sweats. But if she had just taken that and thought, yeah, he's saying, I need to dress up more. He probably likes girls that, wear this and have their makeup done. And he didn't say that, but you're making a whole storyline out of what you thought he meant.
Wow. Assumption is a dangerous game.
It really is. And especially in a marriage.
Yes.
Especially in a marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm quick to be like, hey, what you mean by that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that the message that you are sending is the one that I'm receiving.
That's right.
So could you explain
Yes.
what you meant when you said that?
Yes. And that's good. And, a lot of times we get offended when we're asked, what did you mean by that?
Yeah.
But that's just clarifying so that I can, be on the same page. It's okay to ask, what did you mean by that? Now, I guess the tone would be, you need to make sure you have the right tone. What do you mean, But no, can you explain to me what you meant by that?
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Just a little tip.
That's
Just
awesome.
throwing it out there.
So, I'm just curious. Right. So now you have your own practice,
Mhm.
right? Do you see yourself taking on any other ventures or endeavors, for the rest of the time while you're here on Earth? Do you think this is kind of end game for you? Have you ever thought about doing anything else in addition to what you're doing now?
Well, I never know because, the Lord is ordering my steps.
Yes.
So it depends on what he tells me, my next assignment is. But I will, I'm going to start taking on some interns, therapists in training. And I want to step back a little bit and train others to do this work.
Yes.
So like I said, I'm 65 now. I'm not planning on doing this, for another 10 years.
Yeah.
But maybe another 5. But I'll still have my hands in it, by
Yes.
training others and doing workshops, seminars, things like that.
Building a legacy.
Yeah, building a legacy. Yes.
The Bible says that a good man will leave an inheritance for his children's children.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I always think in the terms of intergenerational legacies.
Yes.
Passing things on, teaching something, because we've been taught that knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that that's a half truth.
Yes.
I believe that applied knowledge is power.
Yes.
Because you can know everything in the world.
That's right.
But if you don't do anything with it,
Yes.
it means absolutely nothing.
That's right.
And when you do get the knowledge, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you just a receiver of information, or are you a reproducer of it?
Right. That's right. Sharing that. Yes.
So I love the fact that you are, wanting to be a reproducer
yes.
of the knowledge and experiences that you've had. So, and pour into other people.
Yes.
So that they can hopefully do the same thing.
Yes. And one question I get a lot from people is, you listen to people's problems all day long. Do you get tired of it? And my answer is always no, absolutely not. And I don't even look at it as listening to people's problems. I remember my first year, I always felt so burdened. And one day I was leaving work and I was just praying about, this client or that client. And the Lord said, I didn't put you in this role to take my place.
Come on.
Yeah. So,
Come on.
yeah, that was like, really? What? I almost pulled over and like, what is this? No, he said, I don't want you. You're not the fixer. You're not the fixer. You lead them to me.
Yes.
And I will fix them. I will show them the way. So this is not your burden to carry.
Yeah.
And that was so freeing for me. It was very freeing.
That's very good.
Yeah. So I don't think I have a magic wand. All I could do is lead people, share with them what I've been through, how the Lord helped me, and give them that hope that, you know what, I can work on this and do the same. I can get through this.
Yes.
So yeah, for anyone out there that wanted to ask that question, no, I'm not burdened by what, clients share with me every day.
That's powerful. And, myself as a coach, I've mentored and I've coached a lot of people around the world. And I've been asked a question similar to that one. But one thing that one of my mentors taught me, he said this, he said, I will listen to what you have to say, anything and everything you have to say. But that doesn't mean that I have to inhale negative emotions.
Right. Yes.
That doesn't mean I have to feel the same way that other people feel.
Right.
That doesn't mean I necessarily have to believe the same thing that other people believe. Right. I will listen to what you have to say, but I won't inhale your negative emotions.
That's right. And and my family says this a lot. Like I have like this blank look on my face because I'm listening. I'm listening. Yeah. And so because I'm not, like, clients can be very excited, they could be angry, and I'm just listening, and so sometimes they may feel like I'm not feeling. I am, but I'm not going to let you dictate what I feel.
Yes. That's good.
I'm not going to let you dictate what I feel. I'm here for you. I'm going to help you, with your emotions so you can, share those emotions in a healthy way. But I don't have to match your energy on the anger or even the sadness.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's
powerful.
I don't know. It's just what God has enabled me to do, and so I'm just trying to do it to the best of my ability. Now I have emotions. I just don't show them like people think I should, but I do feel.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
Before we let you go.
Yes.
And I ask this question a lot, but I think it's such a powerful question. I love hearing the answers. What might people be surprised to know about you?
Well, I'll tell you this, and people are surprised. So, my husband passed away, I think 4 years ago. Time is flying by. Yeah, 4 years ago. And so people ask me all the time, are you going to get married again? And, I was married for 43 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Come on.
And so when people think that, surely she's dating, and I'm not, surely she'll get married again. I don't know. That's totally up to God. But what people don't know about me is that I'm okay with just being with me. I'm okay. Like, I'm not lonely. I don't have to have someone. If I live out the rest of my days without getting married, I think there's enough for me to do in this world that I'll be okay with that.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that. 43 years.
Yes. Hard years. Hard years.
Wow.
But I learned a lot.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Before we let you go, I do have something for you.
Okay.
So what I have here is a custom Call to Serve podcast challenge coin.
Yes.
And what I want that to be, I hope that it is for you, is a reminder of why you serve.
Oh, yes.
Every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality is that you felt called many years ago and you answered the call.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, that is absolutely right.
You answered the call.
Yes.
The word says, asking you shall receive.
Yes.
Knocking the door shall be open.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A lot of people ain't walking through the door.
Yes.
And they wonder why they feel like they're missing something.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because the door is open.
Yes.
You just ain't doing what you need to do and you haven't walked through it.
Yes.
So that should serve as a reminder as to why you serve, every single day.
Yes.
And, our slogan is serving those who serve others. That's what we do here at Call to Serve Podcast.
Yes.
That's what this podcast was created, was to honor you for your many, many years of service and for your heart of service. And we appreciate you and we appreciate what you do every single day for the people that, come into your guidance.
Thank you so much. And that's good. And I believe that. And that's one thing that, I'm like, Lord, I know I heard from you. I know this is what you called me to do. Have I missed anything else? Have I missed anything? Because, we want to answer the call of the Lord.
Yes.
You know, and I know for sure this is what he called me to do. And if I just hope I didn't miss anything else. But if anyone that's listening, you feel like the Lord has called you to do something, don't be afraid to step out there. Because if he called you, he's prepared you.
Ooh, come on.
All right.
Ooh, you know what? He will never ask. He will never require out of you what he hasn't put in you.
That's right. That is right.
He will never require out of you what he hasn't already put in you.
That's right.
That's a good word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Dr. Campbell, thank you so much for coming on Call to Serve podcast today. It's been such an honor and a blessing to hear just a short, part of your story. This is going to be one of the many conversations I'm sure that we're going to have in the future.
Yes. Thank you.
Until next time.
Thank you again, Reggie. Thank you.